You could tell though. Not only is he buff, though. Mike's good. You could tell he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Like the greatest physique we've ever seen, in my opinion, are always when powerlifters decide to switch to bodybuilding.
All right, Wendy Talks Nerd Chat. Here we go. We were talking donkeys. Was it guinea pigs or what was the other one?
Guinea fowl. They're like yoked out turkeys.
Yoked out turkeys. I like that. I have guinea pigs here because my daughter said, she wasn't reading a lot of books at the time, my youngest daughter, and my oldest daughter loved reading. And she's like, Dad, I want a guinea pig. I want a guinea pig. I said, well, if you want a guinea pig, you got to read a lot of books. She said, okay. So I took her to the library. 4 books later, she's like, all right, I'm done reading books. Can I get a guinea pig? And I said, well, maybe. She goes, well, by the way, I read in these books, you have to get 2 guinea pigs. You can't just get one because they need to have 2. They need to have a friend. That's what the books say. So she's smiling. She's like pumped up that I made her get these books.
But don't they hump a lot?
Well, not if you get the same sex. So
yeah, there you go.
so we had to make sure, like, quadruple check at the store.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I go, you know what, honey? I like get down and I'm like, we're just not the type of guinea pig family. And she sits there and she's all calm. She goes, okay. Well, mind you, she's 7 years old at this time. She goes, what would it take to be a guinea pig family? And in my head, I go, well, it would be asking a question like that. And she didn't connect with what I said, but I was like, she just closed me. Like, how can I not reward this behavior now after reading all these books? And
you'll I don't know. You don't have any boys, do you?
2 girls. It's 2 girls.
Yes. So I've had this conversation so much where I can easily see how I play into negative stereotypes, right? And I'm not like by any means like a hard-edged kind of right-wing anti-woman guy, but there's so many situations where my daughter will say or do something, and I will, in the moment, I'll say, like, if I had a son, I would so quickly tell him to shut the fuck up.
100%.
Like, I would be like, and I totally entertain everything. I was like, oh, honey, you're right. Well, let's make that happen. And I can as it's happening, I was like, if you were a boy, I would just be like, shut the fuck up. No.
I have a boy and I do that. And I'm like, yes. All right, it's over. It's over. We're done. That conversation's over. Yeah, I joke with my fiance about that. I'm like, I don't know how to raise a little girl. I know how to raise a little boy. That's no problem. But raising a little girl kind of scares me because I'm able to be rough with him and play with him in a way I know most women don't receive the same way, or maybe young girls. He likes to fight me, and my fiance does taekwondo. Her parents have a studio, and he wants to get into martial arts, and very rough, always roughhousing with me. But I don't know. I'm sure she's a prime example. Girls like that stuff, but I'm just, in my mind, I guess I'm being stereotypical and don't see it that way.
Well, and also you don't want to play into those stereotypes, right? You say, like, I'm not a misogynist, and I believe that. I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. I want to encourage the idea that my daughter could do anything a little boy could do at the same time. You just don't, from being a little boy once yourself, that those kind of hard-edged, like, let me get cut right to the chase type of conversations are so meaningful, and they help you so much, where the handful of times where my dad's like, seriously, like, I understand you're upset about this, but pull your head out of your ass. Let's go. You got to man up. Come on, stop it. And I would just never do that with my daughter. I can't imagine being like, will you stop sniveling? You need to pull it together. Like, I would never.
I started doing it with my 12-year-old a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. I could see that. Like, there's an age where you feel like they're capable. Yeah.
Don't be so sensitive. But I will tell you this, Mike, you'll like this one. Both my girls, I finally got them to agree first to watch a jiu-jitsu class.
Nice.
And then they did the demo class, and they love it, and they want to do it. And I taught my daughter, my 9-year-old, had me in I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, the Darce choke, D-A-R-C-E choke. So she did it, and I kept having her, like, maneuver, and she cut off the carotid. I was like, yep, that's good. Like, you, my big ass. I'm like, you had me there.
Very interesting history to that choke. It's actually named after a guy whose name is John, I believe is John, but his last name is D'Arcy.
Okay.
And he choked out Mayhem Miller with that. It was the very first time anyone had ever really seen it. And Mayhem mispronounced his name in the press conference after. And he's like, yeah, he got me with one of them Darce chokes. And from then on, it's been known as the Darce choke.
Interesting. Yeah, so that was fun, and we got yelled at by mom because we were downstairs too late past bedtime practicing chokes after class, but
it's such a beautiful sport. Particularly, like, really, women can take to jiu-jitsu so well. And I think we talked about this last episode, was that the very special and unique property that jiu-jitsu has that I don't know of. I mean, I'm certainly not like Joe Rogan by any stretch of the imagination, but I have a lot of experience and understanding of martial arts. Like most striking sports and even wrestling, there's a level of like, sure, skill will help with size and strength, but the chasm to which you can make up for size and strength disparities in jiu-jitsu is so vast. It's so vast in comparison to, I think we've talked about, it's like, I'm 170 something, like 173 pounds, and I'm 5'10". I'm pretty skilled and I'm not a giant wuss, but if a linebacker at UT attacked me, I'm pretty fucked. Like there's just no, you know what I'm saying? Like that. But if a linebacker at UT attacks me and he's never trained and he puts his head down and tackles me, like I'm going to put him to sleep. I'm going to, and if I was like a really good boxer or a really good kickboxer, that it probably wouldn't serve me anything, you know?
Right. Justin, your fiance isn't she like a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something, or
taekwondo? She's a fifth degree. Her dad's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
That's what it is. Okay.
I'm a white belt. I'm not any good, but I'm trying. I just started doing it maybe like a year ago. I get beat up all the time.
Yeah, but at your size, and I told the same thing to Joe, at your size and athletic ability, you like if you were a relatively experienced blue belt, you'll start fucking people up, like for sure. You will absolutely start being a real problem.
I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's just so much of a different workout for me. You know, I think I try to use so much muscle as getting in there, and everybody's just laughing at me because I'm trying to muscle my way out of things. And, you know, a minute in, I'm gasping for breath, but yeah, that's a process for sure.
Some of it'll come with just that level of conditioning, like that style of conditioning where you can do things. And it's not even really a matter of like your conditioning physically getting better. It's that your adrenaline will be lower just from doing it more. It won't be so new and different, and you'll be able to be a little more composed. But on top of that, you know when to pick and choose when to go hard. Like you can relax and just like let this guy gas himself out, and then when it's time for me to blast, I will. And once you start kind of like picking and choosing those better, it becomes so much more fun, you know?
Yeah, I got something for you guys.
All right.
This will be fun.
All right, BB Pros, tell like it is. Welcome back to the episode of
the Israetel.
Yeah, hold on. Did you hear the volume when I had it on, Justin?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm about to get my ass kicked by Dr. Mike at some.
Let's see what this looks like.
Dr. Mike here is a trained brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, he's a brown belt.
He has cauliflower ears. I'm nervous, but I'm Jewish, so.
That's where we'll get to the rolling.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. I'm gonna survive this. Let's go. This ain't good enough for me. I'm just trying to look athletic real quick. 1, 2, 3, cheek.
It's a pretty big fella. Well, short, but big this way.
Yeah, for sure.
I see it. It's nice to meet you.
Oh, that's good to see. Is that breathing already? That's me in class. All right.
Oh.
Fun again.
You can hear how hard it's doing already. You better put that underhook with that inside arm.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes left.
Oh.
That's wonderful.
Why is he so strong?
I think he goes against the black belt.
He's bad news.
Yeah, I think he goes against.
But here's the thing: Mike Israetel's huge.
He's a big dude.
Watch this. Here's another one. So, viewers, you don't think little guy holds his own, man. Nice little-
Oh,
I was trying to do that last time.
we got a butterfly suit.
Johnny, it's not looking good for you, man. This guy's all over me.
Yeah, I couldn't do that with you. Looks like he's crawling over the tree.
Yeah, he doesn't have a neck.
yeah. I was gonna say it's hard to choke that guy.
Okay, so just keep breathing, Mike.
Okay, it's hard.
Just keep breathing.
Looks still a brown belt though, and he's got a lot of mass on this guy. He's holding his own.
So as you can see, Mike has the upper hand. Yeah, right. Ready?
I wouldn't say that.
Not really. We call this impedal defense.
Oh, good escape. You could tell though. Not only is he buff, though. Mike's good. You could tell he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
No good.
Brings down a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Okay. But look how like thin that dude's legs are. You just can't pass him.
No, his hips are so mobile. Here's another thing too, though, and you guys both know this is true. That much muscle is so tiring. Like
Oh, yeah.
he's so buff that like that's a lot of circulation just to hang out.
Yeah, I think Mike's like 5'6", 240, something like that.
You can use it.
So now I think it's the last one.
Apollo Creed.
This is probably not going to be too fun for him. Whoop, they backed that up. Whoop. Yeah, any big guys in your gym, Mike?
There's so many.
Apollo Creed.
Like I was rolling Tim Kennedy today, and Tim's
Versus Asian
an
Rock.
animal. Not only is Tim buff, but he's like, you think I can make him panicky? The guy who's been to war like a lot.
He says, "I'll let him get to your back trick every practice."
Look at that.
Oh,
He doesn't have a neck either.
Doesn't.
just tap now,
Johnny,
dude.
whatever
You're
you
gonna
do,
go sleep.
keep your chin tucked to your chest. Don't let him get his little hands in there either.
Yeah, getting the leg over the arm. Oh, yeah.
There you go. Athleticism.
Hey, he got out. Kind of.
No, he's gonna guillotine him.
Yeah.
Oh no, he took it back. Nice.
All right. Still got on the rope. You know what I'm saying? Good shit. At least lean back on him hard so he's like squished. Put your weight back on. There we go. Stretch him out.
He's gonna break his hip flexor is gonna pop off.
That was the end of it.
Did you guys see Eddie Hall fight two dudes?
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
This weekend?
Awesome.
That's
Wild.
that's what I was talking about. Where like there's a thing, unless like believe me, if you know Crone Gracie at 150 something pounds, Eddie Hall be screwed. But if you try to get into a fight with Eddie Hall, a guy who has that level of strength and has at least practiced throwing punches, he'll catch you. You're done. It's over. Call it a day. You can't be a normal size human and try to, there's nothing you can take. He caught that one guy and he was dead. The guy just fell and it was like seizuring and stuff.
Oh,
Watch his punch. Watch later,
Oh.
and the guy's just like asleep.
Almost. I thought if this video gets right,
I thought this was going to be a different one. I thought this was actually the fight, but it's a dude talking.
and it was also incredible.
I screwed that up.
That
awesome.
punch, that looks like the movies. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe that. I mean, that guy fell, looked like a sniper shot him. I don't. Yeah, there's some monsters, dude, and it's like I roll with like Nicky Rod, like the B team guys, like these. They're not only jacked and huge, but they're ADCC competitive quality, like some of the best in the world. The amount and the quickness to which they tap me is so disheartening. But it feels like they're doing magic tricks on me. The thing that I get really kind of frustrated by is like the perma-bulker guy who's 260, 270, and maybe he's not that good, but he's good enough that I feel like I do like want to tap just from the pressure. Like a guy gets top control, I'm like, oh fuck, like that's the stuff where I go home, because a competitive ADCC level black belt tapping me out 20 times, I don't feel bad about me. I go like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what he does that's how he pays his bills. And, of course he's way better than me. It's when someone physically manhandles me, like they just have enough skill that they can use that size. I feel it really I drive home and I'm like, oh dude, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
See what the other view looks like. Oh, it was a little too close. Yeah. What about like training? So for you guys, like Justin, I know Mike, you lift a lot. Justin, you're competing and kind of doing some combat sports. Like, how do you guys look at splitting up your training? With obviously you probably both have a little bit different goals, but what's your approach?
For me, I'll sum it up real quick. Is that it was really confusing when I was 28 to 32, because I always had these visions of like wanting it all. Right. At this point, I just want, because I know like I'm 45 and I'm not natural. I'm on HRT, but that's it. I mean, I'm on a extremely low dose of weekly tests. That's it. That's all. So realistically, I'm not going to be a mass monster. I mean, unless I commit myself to like, I'm going to get huge, and it's not really genetically in the cards for me anyway. So I'd rather just look really good, try my best to look good year round. So when I do that, my training's not necessarily that exhaustive, 3-4 days a week of compound lifts. And I try to, maintain form and really push myself to being within a rep of failure. And outside of that, it's really just a matter of like tending to mobility, so that when I go in and I train, I'm not putting myself in any type of compromising situation. I can train as hard as I want without really worrying about my safety. If I was to make a commitment to do a competition, or to really try to advance myself on a competitive level, I would start to think more seriously about tapering back strength training and being putting my conditioning a little bit more above that. But right now my conditioning's at a level where I'm not going to maybe win a competition, but I can certainly train as much as I want.
Sure.
And looking good is definitely my overall number one priority. So that for me is, I think, Justin, at your age, because you have so much less limits than I do, you probably also have a little bit more of decision making that goes into it.
Yeah, I would say very much amateur jiu-jitsu, like do it on occasion, mainly when I'm around the family, because it's such an important piece of her family. So I'll go in and get beat up, every few months. It's not something I do on a regular basis. Right. I'm pretty like diehard bodybuilder, but I go get rubbed across the mats because they enjoy it. So it's something that I like to do with them. But it's for me, man, it's pretty much all bodybuilding focus, and then cardiovascular stuff here and there. Just more for health benefits than trying to keep a body composition. So I'm pretty boring, 4 to 5 days a week, progressive overload. I'm a big fan of Mike Israetel. I like a lot of his principles and modalities. I've implemented a lot of that. I have a background in powerlifting. So I've got a torn pec, I've got a torn labrum, I have a slight tear to a hamstring. So I just have really learned how to train intelligent So I'm able to do this longer. I'm 32, but I want to compete, maybe for another 8 years. So I can't tear any more muscles. I'm not going to look really good on stage. So yeah, it's kind of picking your battles at that point.
I think that's a really good conversation to have, though, because I deal with so many guys who absolutely their motivation is there and they want it, but let's say they're 30 and they never really seriously trained, and they're kind of either overweight or skinny fat, right? And Justin's talking about, like, the reason Justin, I think, looks the way he does and can maintain that and even grow into, being our age, Joe, is because he had that background in powerlifting. Mm-hmm. And, when I deal with a lot of clients or friends of mine that they really are committed and they want to do it. And then they don't understand why I'm having them train mostly compound lifts in lower rep ranges when they see Mike Israetel or they see, C-Bum training with, 15, 20 reps with machines and things. And I say, because they already have the horsepower. You're talking about, like tweaking your race car when you still have a Prius engine, Yeah. Like, and I know that's a kind of a hackneyed, a bit of a boneheaded analogy, but the reality is, like, at some point you have to build that first. Like the greatest physique we've ever seen, in my opinion, are always when powerlifters decide to switch to bodybuilding. Those giant monster dudes who are just putting up crazy record-breaking numbers. They're like, you know what, 35, I don't know if I could deal with another, ruptured lumbar, so I'm going to get into bodybuilding. They started hitting that 20 rep range with more isolation stuff. Those bodies look amazing, but they had to build that horsepower. The engine had to be there first, and I can't really explain that to people because it doesn't seem like A equals B when you see, like I said, you see all the guys with the world-class physiques are training a lot more isolation stuff. They're training in the higher rep ranges. And I say, like, you should do that when you're 40, but you have to build an engine first,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that, you have to learn how to train hard, and strength training teaches you how to push your limits, So it's like anybody can go do 15, 20 reps, but if you load up 90% of your 1 rep max and put it on your back, you're going to have to learn how to train hard. It's almost a survival at that point. So that's like a big piece, I think, of like getting someone introduced to strength training within their own limitations, pushing that load up and getting used to the accommodating that sort of resistance, and then building on that. Then you can tailor down, like you're saying, to different rep ranges and schemes based off of your goals. But most people don't train hard enough in the gym. I'm sure all of us know someone in the gym who's on their phone, curling, Instagram, walking in the mirror back and forth, back to another set. Those guys never grow. It's the people who go in there for 40, 45 minutes, push it really hard, and do that week in and week out, I think, make the most progress.
I mean, like, look at Ronnie, look at Arnold, look at, go down to like the legends. Almost all of them came from a powerlifting background, and then they realized
dude's freaking strong. Like, C-Bum's no joke. He can deadlift a ton. Like, through his younger days, he was really big on compound movements. It makes sense to refine things when you have the tissue, but like you're saying, if you're starting with a Prius and you want to build up, it's going to take some weight to kind of build those slabs of muscle, and then you can refine things over time.
I think there's some validity too, and I know Tom Shepard was on. We had an episode a couple weeks ago, and he's going to come back on. I got a couple other like specialists that specialize in powerlifting or bodybuilding coaching that I'm excited to have on for the audience to hear what they have to say. But there is that value in, as you grow and get much larger, that your muscles, the hypertrophy is going to happen a lot faster, and your tendons, ligaments will adjust generally, or even your like receptors ability to balance or hold the weight. So I found that during like a deload or something along those lines, doing some, I would refer to it more as functional strength. I don't mean like a single leg on a Bosu ball doing a cartwheel, but like a heavy, like a heavy kettlebell, or like I'll pull up a guy that I know you've had on your show, Mike, but and doing some of those types of like functional strength, and then going back to that is just crazy. Like, my squat will go up 100 pounds because my spine and my stabilizers can actually control the weight, versus, me just slowly, progressively building up on squat. Now, granted, I'm not a power lifter only. If I was, then I probably maybe wouldn't have to shift back and forth as much, but it still just seemed that, the actual strength of the muscles were outgrowing my ability to stabilize the weight or hold it, or even like some stabilizers in the shoulder, rear delts. I've been doing a lot of kettlebell overhead walks, and different variations of like I know Israetel had a clip. It was a short, and it's probably a little out of context, but he was talking about Turkish get up, like not really helping guys in jiu-jitsu. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I get what he's saying, because, whatever. But I was like, but the stabilizers that I've built up from that, when I bench, when I do an every overhead press, squat, like I can feel everything's more connected and controlled and tighter than, now, is there other ways to do it? Sure. Are there guys that maybe have never done that and they're world-class lifters? Sure. But that's just personally at 42, like what I've noticed is trying to keep that, we used to refer to it, I don't know if this is still a term in exercise science, but we called it the kinetic chain, where it was like all the different muscles they attach. If there's a breakdown of that chain, even if it's, lower parts of the body, it still could throw off, the overall alignment of those pressing muscles, for example. And that seemed to help a lot.
I was having this conversation with Bobby Maximus maybe, I don't know, a year ago, but he's also a really skilled, like a world champion black belt, and had competed at high level in kickboxing, and also was in the UFC, but he's jacked too. And I got in the conversation about the overhead squat for that reason. He's like, sure, is the overhead squat a great exercise for hypertrophy? No, it's probably not good. But if you're competent in overhead squatting, believe me, it will help in doing the other exercises that are. And I thought like that exercise in particular, for me at least, is a great analogy and brings some clarity to that, because carrying and then having like mobility in your shoulders and trunk strength to overhead squat would make things probably a lot better for overhead pressing, for squatting itself, for front squatting. You're seeing down chain, you're going to see the benefits that come with having the competency in an exercise like that.
I'll show you guys someone who's definitely doing functional training made him small. So here you go.
Oh, look at Judd.
I've seen this.
Let's see. Oh, it's not playing. There we go. Look at, his legs look pretty small from doing those kettlebells, huh? But yeah, he's got a lot of great content. Love to have him on at some point in the near future here. Just some of the
I'll reach out. Yeah.
Some of the functional training he does, and like, but again, it's more, he's using a much heavier kettlebell and just different movement patterns that I've talked to a few strength coaches that have that philosophy of like being strong in compromised positions, so that when you're in those uncompromised, being strong in a compromised position, so when you're not in that position, you're that much stronger. So like during the squat or during your shoulders, I really like a lot of his content. I haven't really dove into the details of it, but just some of the movement patterns themselves seem to be.
He's a sharp guy too. He's having the luxury of having had him on my podcast. He's not just a good mind when it comes to the physical fitness. He's a sharp guy. He's a really thoughtful dude, and I encourage people to follow guys like that, because they're out there. There's tons of them.
Well, I just noticed like even abductors, adductors, different stabilizers, like, are there some people listening that maybe right now, everything's equal, good for them. But I notice like strengthening some of those, like just doing an inner outer machine or something is like, that's not really developing as much, strength and control personally for me. Yeah. Maybe for others it is, but doing even different like kettlebell movements or like rotational squats and things of that nature, like this help strengthen me to different planes of motion. So when I am doing those other movements, it just seemed like I just feel tighter, like under the bar or whatever the case is. So sure. Just different
Cossack squats are a great example. Like, people will be like, oh man, I just got into kickboxing and my groin is so tight, and they'll do static stretching and stuff. And I go like, man, if you were to really work on being able to do competent Cossack squats, let's say 5 reps each leg, with a good weight, holding it in the rack position, the benefits would be so much greater, not only with mobility, but also like all those like ancillary muscles that would come with holding it. Same with like a Zercher squat or something like that. You're thinking about like you're probably not going to get the same level of mechanical tension on your quads and your glutes and things like that. But the other benefits that come about from being able to hold in a rack position or in a Zercher position, it's pretty extraordinary, you know.
And I think you make a good point, Joe, to talk about functional strength, because I think a lot of people think functional strength is that NASM trainer on a BOSU ball. And really it's holding that front rack position, the Cossack squat, being able to be in those different positions. It's not just about balance. I'm an advocate for all those things. I was a personal trainer for a long time, and most of my demographic wasn't bodybuilders. It was, you know, a grandma who could not sit or go up her stairs anymore. So she came into the gym to get strong. So working on ways to improve their life. Most of that's not going to be done on a circus ball. You're going to be working on real life situations, stepping, sitting, building something like a squat or a deadlift to pick up groceries. So yeah, I think all of those things are super important in general.
Well, I think just changing it up too, right? Like you could do heavy dumbbell shrugs, barbell shrugs, right? Certainly going to be some utility there for building, you know, thicker traps and things like that. But you can work it into your program too, that not only one, just to get some variety, but heavy kettlebell walks. You know, you're going to work a lot more of your forearms. Well, I guess you would work a lot of your forearms with the standing dumbbell, but still just that movement pattern. And I've noticed doing those, working those into my routine. Yeah, it's helping my traps and upper back, but it's also like my core and just getting all those little internal receptors firing to like hold myself from like bobbling over one way or the other. Just kind of helps, again, going back to that tightness feeling. So that's just, you know, that's some things that I've noticed from that, but that's why I kind of brought that up. And I'm curious for you guys too, with cardio, what have you seen people, like, I know it's one of Justin Harris's kind of pet peeves when people talk about like getting small legs from cardio.
Yeah.
He's like, I've never heard, you know, people getting smaller from exercising, you know, it's more generalization, but what do you guys see as far as like utility with some of these types of things we're talking about in the cardio, or maybe some combat sports type work in cardio? Do you guys see any of that?
The big thing for me, and then especially I've had to come to realize this as I've gotten older. I mean, I just turned 45, and I do hate the old meathead adage, like I don't want to do cardio because I don't want to be small. But at the same time, there is some practical kind of reasoning to like, well, I don't want to run the LA Marathon because I want to have a great body. You know, like there's, you know, people get to these extremes, but at the same time, my point being is like cardiovascular training and specifically building your aerobic base is like, and having the discipline to stay in that zone 2 and build your aerobic base. It's going to make your ability to get bigger, stronger muscles better. Like right. It's like when you go out and you start pushing yourself, when you start really like trying to shave off time on your mile runs, now that's where you're getting into the point where you're taking away water from that well of having, you know, a muscular physique, but not getting out there and getting on the treadmill at an incline, not getting on a bike because you're scared of getting, you know, atrophy is crazy to me, because like at some point you have to realize like a healthier body is going to be more competent at building and retaining muscle.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think you were talking about farmers carries in like 10, 12 years ago. John Meadows was really big in the bodybuilding space, and he was working with Dave Tate, and I was seeing him do a lot of those conditioning based exercises, sled pushes, farmers carries. And I really like implementing those types of things in my training. I think that doing some sort of HIIT work is very beneficial, just from like an aerobic capacity. I think that more of that stuff can be implemented in bodybuilding training. Granted, you know, you understand rest and recover when it's needed. In general, I think having better cardiovascular system is better health. We look at better utilization of glucose, you know, glucose uptake into the cell. We'll have downregulation of that if we are not. Cardiovascular fitness is going to play a role in that to a degree. If you eat a lot of food and you don't move, you usually get fat. You know, it's a rarity where you see someone not do that. So I think it serves a purpose. I actually like to do a lot of walks outside, maybe not for burning calories, but just managing my wake and sleep cycle. So if we're looking at circadian rhythm, I think of that. and just getting steps in general is going to increase like daily expenditure. But I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think where most people go wrong is they pick one way and they hate it, so they just don't do it. So it should really comes down to whatever method you like and you can do every day. That's what I tell people. Like, don't make it complicated. If you don't want to do the stairs for 30 minutes, find something that burns that equal amount of calorie or get you in that heart rate, and do that type of exercise. I'm a bigger proponent on sustainability.
I agree. I think those are good points. And then I also like to point out that if you analyze, there's never been leaner, stronger, bigger, faster people than there are now. The fastest of the fast are faster than anyone. The highest jumping people now jump higher than anyone ever. But the average person, especially men, nowadays compared to generations past, are really fat piles of shit compared to just the average dude in this country in 1950 and the reality is that unless, I don't encounter this problem with my friends or with clients that are male men, with construction workers, that are people who are moving through it. When you work in a cubicle and you sit down, especially with technology being what it is nowadays, the idea of just going to the gym and then hitting it, and then you're going to spend the rest of your entire waking existence not moving it's not going to be competent for like long-term sustainable kind of fitness goals. And like just a quick story here is like I have those Captains of Crush grippers, right? And I was challenging myself 4 or 5 years ago, living in Venice Beach, California. Like I wanted to get to the top one. They'll put you on the website, like your name and everything. And I couldn't do it. I could kind of see it moving, but I couldn't squeeze it. I was training like crazy. And I moved to Texas here, and I'm literally a farmer. When people tell you like I do farmers walks, I go like, no, I literally do farmers walks. I carry bales of hay and pails of water every day, all the time. And I stopped training my grip specifically. And then like 6 weeks ago, I just found it in my garage, and I went and jokingly went to squeeze it, and I just crushed it. And I was like, oh, and it's from swinging sledgehammers and changing tires on the tractor and carrying bales of hay and carrying what all day, every day. I people, there was like a time and a place when I was pushing people to kind of keep their smartphone in their pocket so they could at least keep an eye on how much steps they're getting. And now I average like 13 to 15,000 a week just without putting any effort into it. And I think when you're doing that, like I said, I don't see these same kind of conditioning or cardio questions coming from my friends who work for UPS, who work in construction and work manual labor jobs, because when they're not in the gym, that's what they're doing. That's their lifestyle, is movement and kind of keeping circulation a little bit more active and keeping on their feet. There's something to be said for that. I mean, we're not, if we analyze like the animal kingdom, the Homo sapien, we're not really like very strong, and we're not very good swimmers, and we're not really that fast in comparison to other, primates.
Right.
But we can go and we can keep going a long time. Even an out of shape guy can walk forever compared to, certain other primates.
Well, check this out. There's a little throwback too. And you mentioned that 1950s. So,
A California high school
oh, is it going to get there?
La Sierra High School has developed a program.
Look at those kids, man.
Of physical excellence.
How many kids can do this now?
Like a third of them.
And like I said, if you took them to a baseball field, basketball court, or a football field, the kids nowadays would fucking destroy these kids. But if you're just talking about the average student, like look at how fucking awesome they are. Look at how awesome these kids are.
These are like basic standards, right, Joe? Like the bare minimum that you need to do.
Right.
People think now probably that looks like boot camp, and it's like, no, you should be able to pick yourself up and, be able to carry your own body weight. Those are like,
well, it's like these things, the whole things at the wall or whatever, right? Like how many kids do you even know in your high school that could do that? Very, very few. And this has got the whole damn class doing it.
And it's just like, they didn't have smartphones, and they didn't. And by the way, like just the notion of being active, it wasn't really a choice. I mean, if you didn't have kind of technology, and also like how many of those kids had cars, not even really a financial, it's just like realistically, most of them were probably just walking in general so much more frequently and staying more active. It's a little bit, I think, chemically more appropriate, and then if you add, the synergistic effect of like that 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 days a week of getting in the gym with those and pushing the muscular capacity, then you start to see, you know, that's when you start to see the stuff that really special.
Well, Justin, I know we were talking before about like what you do in off season, you know, you've put on quite a bit of size for your transition. Like, what does your week look like nutrition wise? You know, do you rotate days with your training? Like,
That's a good question. So I've been working through that. I had a coach I was working with for like the past 2 years, and we really have just been putting an emphasis on my upper body, working more on my arms. My legs just grow. Everybody's like, your legs are getting better. And, you know, I just barely hit them. That's a strong point for me. But doing, you know, biceps and triceps 2 to 3 times a week, which I actually hate, you know, having a powerlifting background, that stuff's boring. Like I hate, unless I'm doing closed grip bench or I'm doing some dips, I really have a hard time. And maybe that's why my arms are small. Like psychologically, I have a hard time tapping in there. It's like when I know it's time to squat, it's fucking go time and I'm ready to go. It's trying to train my arms that way, but they've come up significantly. But just prioritizing them earlier in the workout and just giving more direct work to them. As far as like nutrition, I'm a big advocate of, you know, what Justin Harris preaches, kind of like a carb cycling approach, because I am a sedentary person. I am at my desk. I don't need to cram 500 grams of carbs. Today I didn't work out. You know, I'm going to mow the lawn and get 10,000 steps. I don't need 500 carbs to do that. So kind of leaning more into fat, keeping protein the same. And tomorrow I'll train and then I'll kind of load carbs back in. I think, you know, nutrition as well as like certain ancillaries. Like I know some things that I personally like to utilize is do like to use some Humalog, some different types of insulin around my training when I'm consuming more carbohydrates. I know that's not the end all be all, but I do think that has helped me partition, gain muscle to a degree by increasing the amount of food and then shuttling nutrients to the cell. I do think that that's helpful.
And what are your thoughts? Well, I'd love to know both of your guys' thoughts on, because with my level of activity, I'm not someone who carries enough muscle mass where I'd have to start really having like if I keep my protein high and I monitor my overall intake, things work out for me. But I have started to play with keeping my carbs, just kind of really spiking them around the training. I know Justin, and I know Justin Harris, that is, and then you, Justin Hokams, have talked about kind of carb cycling overall, but that's on a day in and day out basis. What about actually keeping them, you know, the 20, 30 before training and maybe hitting that 70 to 100 carbs after training, and then the rest of the time?
It's probably the most important time to fuel your workout and then recover from it. I think it depends on the context of dieting. So if someone's really dieted and they're hungry, sometimes stringing carbs throughout the day to kind of monitor hunger hormone, but maybe not a large amount. But a good rule of thumb for somebody I usually see is like 50 to 60% of your carbohydrate load pre and post, maybe pre-post intra, and then really keeping it away at times where you're least active. And then I lean more into complex sources. So in the morning, if I'm very dieted and I have 30 carbs to eat, probably going to lean into oatmeal. I'm not going to have, you know, a piece of white bread, but I will have more of the sugary, higher glycemic stuff around my training, because that's instant energy, you know? So I think for better body composition, for your question, Mike, you're like, you know, is there benefit to doing that? I think so. And if you want to be in a lower carbohydrate state out of your workout window, I think there's a lot of health benefits, from cognitive health benefits, just improvement of glucose and insulin, by staying more into fats and protein. So from a health aspect, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I think with, you know, obviously Justin does a lot, Harris does a lot of individual coaching and is kind of one of the, you know, early on people doing carb cycling, but generally speaking and working with him and then taking some of that and translating it with some people I've worked with, or high school athletes as well. He does a lot, like on the, to your point, the percentages around working out has been, you know, a big focus of his that I've picked up on, but also like the high days doing that 50-50, like a faster digesting carbohydrate, spiking your insulin. I think he does that for a couple reasons. I don't want to speak for him, but my assumptions would be, and my understanding would be, to get the volume of carbohydrates in there, but then also like spiking insulin so that, you know, you can fully recoup and kind of fill out from there. And you're so much more sensitive on those high days. So what I've seen is a lot of like a 50-50 meals on those high days. And then what I've done with people who are trying to put on weight or who are naturally leaner or more active is I'll do a 50-50 split around their carbohydrates. So I'll do, like you're saying, Justin, Hokams, like, you know, 60% of their carbohydrate intake pre, intra, and post. But I'll do, let's say they're going to have 150 grams, maybe 50 or 75 or is more of a simple sugar, you know, might be like, you know, a jelly, a honey, or some other kind of like a fast acting glucose source with that slower digesting pre-workout about 90 minutes before and about 90 minutes after. And of course they have like a, you know, protein source there too. And that seems to help like fuel the workout a little bit more. And then also with the recovery right after. But just, I just noticed most people are under eating around that time. And it's kind of a good way to do it. And I really mentally had the connection when I was dieting, and Justin Harris had me doing that, where I don't think it was 50-50, but I had a higher percent of my carbs around my training and the rest. So I would like look forward to training, even though I was so depleted, because I got to eat. And I was like, were so low because I'm genetically fat by nature. So I can put on size and strength so easy. And, you know, I've pictures buried somewhere of me, 295-pound powerlifter without a neck. So like, to me, like the diet was, you know, getting dialed in is extremely important. And then over time of dieting, right? Like you can add to it. So you can, you know, everyone can, if they check out, if they don't know, anyone watching this, Big Paul, like you can watch his progression and how much more he eats now compared to what he did 4 years ago. He's always had a fast metabolism, but his metabolism's, you know, just through the roof from all the carb cycling and growth, you know, growing that he's put in the last couple of years. So,
well, that's another thing that I don't think the average guy and gal appreciates enough. And I do think that's one of the very few benefits of like the muscle mommies and like the chicks on Instagram who are blowing up the Instagram with their training feeds, is that you're starting to see is like, this is a 135-pound girl who just is constantly eating, and the like earning that ability, building that, realistically building to the point where you become this machine as opposed to just someone who's kind of surviving. I do think not enough people give enough credit to what that does to quality of life. Like, it's so much easier for me compared to most of my friends who are my age. It's so much easier for me to stay lean than it is for them because I don't have to be all that strict. You know, like getting lean and muscular affords you the ability to continue. And also with training too, I think there's such a, because of like the body, the fringes, the high level bodybuilders make you think that the more experienced you become, the more you have to train, or the higher the volume you get. The reality is like the better you get at it, the less you have to train, because you're so much more competent and good at kind of hitting those focused reps and focused sets. It's like maintenance of being pretty darn good. I'm not talking about stepping on stage, but maintenance of being a guy with a six-pack in your 40s is so much easier when you already build the framework, because the eating and the training is just it's not what people think it is. You know?
Right.
I saw it with my own eyes. I don't know if I've told it on this podcast, but I went to the set of Pain and Gain, and The Rock literally had a guy whose job it was to just keep bringing him food. And I'm like, they're filming a scene where he's kind of standing there and he's sitting in between. He's like, do you understand how much I have to eat just to not lose muscle? Like, do you understand how much I have to smash in my face? And for a 50-year-old guy, that's a lot more fun than constantly monitoring every calorie that goes in and out.
I got some premarital counseling I'm doing. Wish me luck, gentlemen. It's good seeing y'all.
Good luck with that. Have fun.
All right, we'll wrap with this. I did have this to share for anybody out there who's checking it out. We did an old, this is just a general review of Carb-Cycling that we did in a presentation. So by no means, you know, does this replace a coach like Justin or Paul or anything like that. But we kind of I put this up. We did a seminar, Justin and I did, at a gym here in Michigan, powerlifting gym. And this kind of just outlined like someone's, training and then a 3-day approach to dieting or to carb cycling, if you will, like a higher day, a medium day, a lower day. And it had, a breakdown, like if you're doing like legs and a back day, carbohydrates are higher to refuel muscle glycogen, protein might be a little lower, no added fats, last meal could be a cheat meal. And you can kind of see there for visual, especially for like the audience out there, if you can see this, it's a high, medium, low day. Medium is more moderate carbohydrates, moderate fats, slightly higher carbohydrates, which I was talking about earlier, around pre and post workout meals. And then obviously your low day, non-strength training days, you're going to have low to match activity level. And then, moderate protein and generally the same amount of protein to have in a medium day most of the time. And then, moderate dietary fat in there and, low carbohydrates. There's no like carbohydrates in the actual like pre and post because you're not strength training on these days.
Yeah.
And then the last visual was just this one, and shameless plug for field rations, but that was in there for our presentation, so I'm going to keep it. But it just kind of showed like an example of, how maybe those meals would be laid out and give people an idea of spacing out meals. And your pre and post workout meal generally are prescribed different around your plan. And then you have like your meals to kind of keep things going, keep all the nutrients getting in throughout the day. And then you have a pre and post workout meal, which tends to help. And like I said, mentally at a minimum, it helped me quite a bit. But also just getting all those good nutrients to help fuel the workout and fuel recovery seems to help out quite a bit. So hopefully that's helpful for people out there too. Just give them a brief intro to, general concepts, high level of carb cycling. There's a lot that goes into that, of course, but it just kind of helps people.
I think carb cycling is really smart. It's really genius because if you're making that commitment to like, you're going to go to special territory, you're going to go like, I want to get shredded. Having weeks on end where you don't look forward to carbing up is pretty miserable. Having 1 or 2 days a week where you can do it, it makes it so much easier to have those low days where you're like, dude, just 2 more days, and then I'm gonna have 500 carbs, like
right.
And then having that feeling too of being at the end of the day on your high carb day where you're literally like, I don't even want this bread, I don't even want this rice. Getting to yourself to that level before you wake up and go into a low day makes it so much easier to make, like it's a little bit more attainable, I think, than just those like months of slogging away. It's miserable.
Yeah, no, and I'm adjusting right now because I'm trying to still, continue to get dialed in more, but also fuel, some pretty intense jiu-jitsu sessions because I have, like, our school doesn't break you up by belts, so it's a mixed bag. So it can get pretty rough in there, and everyone's good dudes and all. But I've been adjusting my nutrition a lot because I realized first I had to start with like electrolytes and fluids, which I've always been more than good for my training. But then you throw that in, and you got a gi on, and it's summer, and it's like, it's 4x like what I need now. I'm like putting salt in every drink I have now just throughout the day to kind of just keep everything, going and get used to that, and trying to avoid like cramping because similar to you, I'm trying to grip, you have, like you were mentioning, a strong grip. Mine's getting stronger, but I'm noticing I'm gripping way too hard in there because when I leave, I can't close my hands on my steering wheel. So that's a problem, but
it's a skill too. Like, because like, I've noticed, especially like judo guys, like really high skilled judo guys, they're so good at knowing how to grip that they don't even have to use like maximum levels of strength.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think we'll wrap on that note. Any closing thoughts or?
Yeah, I want to pitch this so that we can talk about it next week. I definitely love to get everybody's take on it, but I was interested in knowing what people think about certain stimulants which are wildly effective, like ephedra, Yihimbe, for instance. They're wildly effective, but like, what do they do realistically? Because the internet's view on it varies so greatly. What are they really doing for mental health?
Sure.
I have so many people I could pull up right now that are like, ephedra makes me feel happy, actually. And then I have other people who are like, I was contemplating killing myself because of it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
So I would love to talk, especially with someone who deeply understands the chemical aspects of it. And then
Yeah,
also,
I know
Go ahead.
Kurt plans to come back on, and then Justin always mentioned he'll rotate on. So we'll try to tag those guys in and unpack that at a really deep level. I think that'd be great for everybody out there and give us some good nuggets for sure.
I'm always interested in stuff where the opinions vary so greatly. And then also I wanted to know about like food choices, because sure, all of us on these phone calls have no problem eating, rice and oatmeal, but there's so many people out there now. It's like, if it's not carnivore, if it's not fruit and beef, it's not good.
Right.
And there has to be some level of validity to that, but also there has to be some point where we can puncture that and talk about how, no, actually, it's just a matter of regulating your overall intake.
Got it. No, good stuff. Well, everybody out there, be sure to comment in the comment sections, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, be sure to either email them in, put them in the comments. We got a list, kind of a little bit of a list building up that we'll have in future episodes we'll unpack. But as always, thanks to Justin Hokams and Mike Catherwood for joining. And,
Thank you, sir.
Many more to come. So enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you.
Hell yeah.
This episode is brought to you by First Detachment. First Detachment is an expert formulated supplement company founded by renowned coach Justin Harris. We've combined science with real-world experience in each product. We are battle-tested. Are you? Find your battle today at firstdetachment.com.